we're talking about what we're doing. Anyway, the ebb and flow of the migration of bodies from Central America, South America, and beyond have its genesis in policies we ultimately create that benefit U.S. corporations. A case in point was the CIA-induced overthrow of Guatemala's first democratically elected president, Jacobo Arbenz Guzman, in late June 1954. He established policies that would redistribute unused land in the country. When the powerful American-owned United Fruit Company lost many acres of land, the CIA came to the rescue. The country has never recovered. The United States spent billions of dollars in El Salvador to prop up the right-wing oligarchs and generals that rule the country. They wanted no part in improving the lives of the peasants, those who really need the average Salvadorian. The wealthy in the country owns most of the land, including the best lands to grow coffee, an important export. Well, we have two great people in studio today with us. We have Maria Vilma Duran, who is the producer of Little Central America 1984, as well as Ruben Martinez, who is in from Los Angeles, and the son and grandson of immigrants from Mexico and El Salvador. He is a writer, performer, and teacher. He is the author of Desert America, A Journey Across Our Divided Landscape and Crossing Over a Mexican Family on the Migrant Trail, and other titles. Welcome aboard Politics Done Right. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
Thank you so much for having us.
Well, of course. I mean, when I heard about you from, Stuart, one of our our board operators in there, he really came and he saw the play and he said, Egberto, you should really check these guys out because this was boss. That's what he said. This was boss. So I tell you what, as a local producer here, Maria, why don't you tell me a little bit about Little Central America in 1984, the genesis, how it came about?
Well, I mean, I've really come into the process. I think after the genesis. So, Ruben would definitely be the one to talk about that. But I mean, my experience has been amazing, being able to be part of this project, and really being able to highlight our community, our Central American community, which is big, which is thriving, here in Houston. But Ruben, I think he would definitely be the one to talk about that.
Well, she passed the baton, Ruben. She passed the baton.
And we'll go back and forth. Thank you for having us, Egberto. I really liked your analysis at the top of the show about the global situation and the ebb and flow of migration. Everybody in this room, right?
Are immigrants.
Yes.
And at this table, we're all from Central America. Panama, Salvador.
That's
there
right.
you go.
Que viva Centroamérica.
Viva Centroamérica.
Sí.
And being Central American, being the son of a Salvadoran psychologist and poet, Vilma Angulo, rest in peace, my mom, I've always been aware of how our community is relatively invisible compared to other Latin American, Mexico,
Yes.
of course, and I'm half Mexican,
Yes.
so I can't say
You can't
anything
hit it
bad
too
about
hard now.
Mexico, But if we the Mexican hegemony, if we can call it that,
Right.
Overshadows our community a lot. And I had the great pleasure of being in Houston and teaching at the University of Houston for several years in the early 2000s, and got to know the community a little bit at that point. And coming back with this project, Little Central America 1984 is a tour of a few cities in the United States that have big Central American populations. The Bay Area of California, Washington, D.C., and here in Houston. And we are recreating through poetry and music, live music and theater, a moment in our history. We say 1984, Little Central America 1984 is the title. 1984, because that's when our community was really
Right.
starting to come together.
Right.
The numbers of people that had arrived and the community establishing itself through social service agencies for the refugees at that time and finding its political voice here.
Right.
Through solidarity with the struggle for justice and liberation in Central America at that time, but also establishing its own presence and seeking justice here with all the problems we have in American cities, right? And discrimination and policing and all those things. So a generation later, we have a new wave of refugees that have arrived, a new set of challenges, but we're looking back to 1984 at all the things that our community got right. All the solidarity that was expressed back then through the sanctuary movement, the churches who opened their doors to the refugees, And all the people who had organizing experience from their home countries of Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, who were expelled from the country because of their organizing
Right.
down there, well, they come up here with a lot of organizing skills.
Right.
And so we have social service agencies like the Central American Resource Center, CRECEN, whose roots are back in the 1980s. So we're looking back to look forward, is basically the idea. Of
Now,
production.
this is an artistic presentation, however.
Yes.
I haven't had the honor to see it yet. This is an artistic presentation. In the art that you're bringing out, are you also exposing the political parts of it, or is it mostly
Sure.
just the goody-feely thingy?
We definitely want good feelings, and that comes through the experience of music. We have a cumbia,
right.
going on.
Yes.
We
Little
definitely got-
dancing.
and Maria Vilma is reading poetry
Uh-huh.
along with, I just wanted to throw it to Maria Vilma for a second here because we're doing a national tour.
Right.
But here in Houston, all our partners are the local community.
Right.
So Maria Vilma, maybe you can talk about the Central American Collective and all the people who are involved in the production through the Central American Collective.
Yeah, no, one of the great things about this production has been being able to include our community members and also making sure that we're all included. So
Right.
we have, for example, Susana Oxlack, who she is the leader of Chapines de Corazon, a Guatemalan group. We have a local poet, Alba Herrera, Elmer Romero, who's with Crecen. And so it's beautiful to be able to bring everybody together to be part of this, to be a voice.
Right.
And then I'm part of it as well. I wasn't expecting that piece, but I'm
Oh,
very
you didn't
happy.
you didn't expect that you were going to be doing your own poetry, or?
I was more behind the scenes and then was brought into the scene. So
What, did Ruben do that to you, or?
Ruben and Elia.
Yeah, our director, Elia Arced, my co-writer, she's not here this morning, she couldn't be here, but her practice as a theater artist is very community-based. That She comes out of the radical theater of the 1960s.
Explain that.
Radical theater, like the Bread and Puppet Theater, for example, back east, and the Living Theater in Washington, D.C., and the Mime Troupe in San Francisco. The roots of radical theater go further back, but basically, breaking through the fourth wall, involving the community. Here we have a beautiful Salvadoran family, the Benitez family. A father and his 4 daughters are playing a key role in acting milestone moments in any family's history, but that are very poignant specifically for immigrant families, right? And we're also telling the story of the families that didn't get a chance to celebrate those milestones. For example, Oscar Alberto Martinez and his daughter Valeria, who died drowned in the Rio Grande in 2019.
That's the one with the little girl, yeah.
Yes. I think we all remember
Yes.
that we have that image in our heads.
I mean, Never Goes her down right there on the banks. That was
yes.
sad.
Yeah.
Yes. So we remember those who were lost on the journey and celebrate those who have made it. You asked about the politics.
Right.
I mean, we definitely tell the story of what happened that gave rise to the civil wars in the 1980s. It drives me crazy that people of our generation, know this story intimately,
Right.
but that young people, do not really remember, you know?
I mean, I came here when I was 5 years old, and so I don't
You don't
remember.
even remember El Salvador.
Luckily, I was able to go back and every other summer and spend time over there with my family. But I don't know all those other pieces.
Right.
I wasn't aware of it. And then even the much younger generations,
Right.
they are completely. They have absolutely no idea.
You know what is amazing? That this is just a quick segue here. I remember I think it was 1988, right before the invasion of Panama, we were flying into Panama, but we took TACA, and TACA is centralized in El Salvador. So we were flying into TACA, and at that time, the airport was surrounded by all the metralladoras and all the guns and so forth. And my wife is looking down, and she's like, what's all of that? And I'm like, well, there's sort of a war that's in El Salvador.
Yeah.
And we walked out of the airplane, and the military had a whole bunch of folks running down with grenades and things on her. She got off the plane to go to the bathroom. She ran back onto the plane. So, I mean, I bring that up for a special reason. When you're insulated here, including the kids that are here now, even whether they're the kids of immigrants or whatever, they don't understand the kinds of things that we've lived through being a part of a Central America, South America, or places where invasions have occurred, where all these sort of issues that then lend itself to create these communities, the sanctuary cities, etc., that
Yep.
you're talking about.
Yes, you encapsulated it beautifully there. And ultimately, I think what we're pointing to here is that there is the origin point of our story, which is tragic.
Right.
U.S. intervention, U.S. capitalist exploitation in the region going back over a century, right? The Monroe Doctrine.
Yeah.
All that
Carry
stuff.
a big stick, yeah.
And then getting uglier and uglier across time, so that in the 1970s, the Plan Condor, the CIA involvement in South America and Argentina, in the Dirty War in Chile, the overthrow of Allende. And so all those that origin point is dark, it's tragic, and there's a lot of people to remember, right, who are disappeared, and we need their faces, we need their stories, we need their names.
So
Right?
I want to, because there's something that I didn't do that I should have done, and say you're still present. This is still active here in Houston. Your play.
Oh, yeah.
So tell people how they can actually be a part of this, and to see these presentations.
Yeah.
I mean, we invite everybody to visit diverseworks.org and come out and join us this Saturday at 7 p.m. and also Sunday at 1:30 at the First Unitarian Universalist Church in the Museum District, because it is a very powerful show. It is a very powerful show, and we need to make sure that not only is our community coming out, but we're bringing friends.
Right.
And that
Allies.
we're bringing allies, we're bringing our youngsters, we're bringing our abuelitas, because we all need to be a part of it. And I think that one of the really important things is that afterwards, that we start having a dialogue within our families, and we start, being able to really share that, and especially with our kids. And
Who
I
is
have
supposed to have that dialogue? Are you talking about immigrant families, or are you talking about Houston, in this case, since we're in Houston, Houston at large?
I think all of us need to have that
Right.
dialogue.
The reason I ask that is because when we have the discussions about sanctuary cities, when we have the discussion about immigrant families, it always comes across as something like we are there to just give a handout to these folks. We're there to. It's always a negative, as opposed to seeing it in. There are two ways that one must see this, in my opinion. One, there is an immigration issue of people coming over, which needs a sanctuaries because of policies that we've had that created those realities. And número dos is that the interesting thing is that the immigrants that had the wherewithal to make it over here, right, to get over here, and I'm not saying this for a pat on the back, but generally are the ones who were able to do so, the stronger ones who are able to leave, which means when they come to a country like this, they overperform. And I think that is what you actually see. No matter what you're doing, if you're picking grapes or if you're an engineer,
Sure.
you are overperforming because of who you are and what you went through. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think, yes, you definitely. And I think the one thing that I am always advocating for is the fact that they're also giving back,
Right.
and they're working with their communities in their places of origin in order to empower them as well. Because, and I can say that from personal experience, some of the work that I do in El Salvador, but also friends, who they create organizations. They're, going and making sure that there's like the most basic things in those aldeas, in those caseríos, so that people don't have to make the journey,
Right.
or even getting even more political, and really, being activists for their communities and making sure that, policies that the correct policies for their communities are the ones that start getting in place. And so there's, I think that yes, there's that moment of, we provide sanctuary, we provide these services, but then yes, there's definitely a huge return on that. There's a huge return, and that's the part that we continue to overlook, the part that we continue to not talk about, the one that we continue to not highlight. And it's important for us to do that, because again, going back and looking at our younger generations, now we see, second generations, third generations who are doctors, who, are in places of privilege and power, and they need to understand this genesis in order for them to also understand the privilege that they have and ensure that they are using it correctly for our communities.
That is so important for several reasons because, we have a tendency in the United States to be a very insulated community, to have insulated communities. And when you move up in stature or class or whatever, we're taught to pretty much forget about where we've come from. And I'm not only talking about, let's say, from the immigrant community, I'm talking about the American community at large. If you take a look at the class separation, it's like you made the jump ship, you are invited into the other class, and suddenly the things that you support, the policies that you support, the types of taxation, etc., no longer interested in it, right? Because I've made it, I got mine, you get yours, right?
Yes, and that's something I think that plays out in immigrant communities in a very particular way, because we come from caste societies already, right, with very hardened, class structures. So when we come over here, just thinking of my grandfather. My grandfather kind of made it in this country, became a homeowner. I'm talking about the Mexican side of my family. And he would talk about the recently arrived immigrants. He would look down on them and say, they're chusma, which is like a hayseed or low class. Because that's that very phenomenon that I've made it, which drives against solidarity, against recognizing that we're all kind of like victims in this structured system that does not allow for mobility and equal justice and opportunity and et cetera, et cetera. And of course, ultimately, that's what the struggles for liberation in the global South have all been about. So once you cross the border, ideology becomes particularly powerful. And what I think is we have, every time there's a crisis point, like in the 80s and today, there is another opportunity to chip away at those structures, ideological structures that prevent us from enacting solidarity. This is a moment that is calling upon all people of good faith to recognize that we're in this together. The pandemic was the biggest call of all globally to say, hey, we're in this together. It also highlighted the deepest ideological divide, the starkest ideological divide that keeps us from enacting solidarity. But I'm hopeful because in the end, when we talk about Little Central America 1984, the production, and thinking about that moment and where we are today, can we say the glass is half empty or half full? I can say half full because the airport in San Salvador today is named Oscar Romero Airport.
Wow, okay.
Oscar Romero today is a saint.
Right.
In 1980, there were people, that a lot of people in El Salvador on the right wing, supported the fact that he had been killed.
Right.
I heard people say this.
Right,
and today he's a saint, right? Our community has not only survived, as Maria Vilma said, it has thrived. And there are 250,000 Central Americans living in the greater Houston area.
Is it that many?
Wow. Million.
It's actually more. That's what the census tells us. But if we really start going into the communities, we know that there's more.
Wow.
That's how big it is.
It's interesting that when you made mention about that issue with the caste system or whatever, it's funny because a guy that does some work for me, he's from Mexico, and I told when he found out that I'm a full-time activist and do all this kind of work and so forth, and he said, something, why do you bother? And then I said, what do you mean by why do you bother? He said, well, I'm going to tell you something. And he said, he gave me some info about his status. I won't mention it here, but he gave me some info about his status. And then he said, and you would not imagine, the people that I have the hardest time with are my own people, de Guanajuato, okay? Right. So, that moved over here and made it.
Right.
And he said, the folks that pay me the least, the folks that do, and he was saying, what we kept on talking about, and I was like, well, you can actually be that template. You can actually do the teaching. I mean, I imagine you will have a lot of I want to backstep a minute.
Yeah.
How do you come to a town, a city like Houston, and within what you've written, incorporate local artists and make it flow in such a manner that it looks like a seamless production?
Yes. So the writing is first person. Elia Arce, our director and co-writer, and I are from that generation, from the 1980s generation.
Right.
We lived the conflict very closely, and so are recalling that moment. So there's this general historical, cultural background because we recreate the moment culturally through music and poetry. And the music is the best of Latin American 1980s new song, what they call the new song movement, which was a great aesthetic innovation, beautiful, beautiful compositions that had deep social, historical, political content at the same time. Great poetry telling a big political story.
Right.
So that's part of this presentation. So that's kind of like the overarching, container of the show, but within which community voices can flow through. Maria Vilma's cohort from the Central American Collective, women are declaiming, declamadores we call them in Spanish, declaiming, poetry of several wonderful Central American poets. And the family that I mentioned earlier, the Benitez family, are acting out these key roles. So there's this overarching structure, but there's all this space that we invited the community. Well, the community invited us in,
Right.
And now we're inviting the community in and creating this.
Like how you
together.
tricked Vilma into becoming an
Exactly.
active live poet, right?
That's right. That's right.
And
That's
she
right.
did it. And
I'm doing it.
And she's doing it. I should say that she's doing it. And actually, I really enjoy that. It's like when people, there would be people who say, I'd like you to talk about something like this on the radio. And I would tell them, okay, good. Come on in. Talk about it. And he said, no, I meant you talk about it. I said, why me? I mean, you come in and you talk about it.
Yeah.
And, that the people appreciate that more so. Even the listeners that are out there, like I can imagine those that are listening, whichever part of the immigrant community listening to, whether it's been from Central America, Latin America, or elsewhere, are saying, wow, we have a voice, eh? We got a voice.
Yes.
And
the voice is our community in relationship with allies, right? Because our community could not make it alone back then.
No community can.
We're not total victims either.
Right.
We don't need handouts.
Right.
But we need collaborators and allies. Right. And a generation later, we're recalling the reason we're at the Unitarian Universalist Church on Fannin is because that was a sanctuary in the 1980s.
Right.
Yeah.
Refugees slept on the altar in there, and one of the people who's going to be part of the production slept on the altar with them
at the university. And you know what? Yes. The one in the Woodlands as well. They were a sanctuary church. That's further northeast Houston. Yes. They were a sanctuary church, and I think they had a family that they brought in during with all of this happening. So it's important. But what I like about what both of you promote here is that this isn't about victimhood. This is about collaboration, and again, there is no when I remember when I came here, right, and whenever I was always political, and I get political, and people say, you damn import, you don't be telling me this, you come into my country, and I would stop them right there and say, first of all, I feel the same rights to this country, no less, no more than you. The only person that I will bow myself to of being in this country are the indigenous that's been here for tens of thousands of years. Sure. So therefore, as far as I am, my feet are planted here in the United States. Your feet's planted. Your feet's planted. We are 100% parts of it from the day we stepped on it, irrespective of how we stepped on it. And I think all immigrants must have that, because we should never, ever allow anyone to think they have better buy into this country than we do. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. I mean, I do. I call myself a Mexican Salvadoran American.
Right.
Right. I claim these identities in the big American sense.
Right.
When we say America, we have Latin America, we have Central and North America.
Right.
It's a big two continents that come
Right.
together in Panama, right?
Right.
And our great leader, Simón Bolívar.
La Revolución Bolivariana.
Right, el Libertador
Uh-huh.
wanted to have us all together.
Right.
Right. And the idea was he could see, even back then, how the United States was becoming a dominant force.
Right.
And he thought the only way to balance that hegemony was for Latin America to become united.
Right.
We're still working on that today.
I want to tell you
Yeah.
something there, because I brought this up in several programs, and starting with Venezuela. A lot of people love to hate on Hugo Chavez, and I'm not going to. We won't get into the politico of Hugo Chavez, but I'm going to say the theory of Hugo Chavez and the Bolivarian Revolution, and having a pole in the South, meaning Brazil, Argentina, Peru, Ecuador,
Yeah.
on a single monetary currency and these other issues. There was some merits to that, right? And you don't have to like these people to understand that there's some merits to having not having one dominant factor in any particular hemisphere.
No doubt. Yes. And that's true geopolitically, and it's true in a city like
Yes.
Houston, which is a microcosm of the world, of the region.
Yes.
And the Central American voice is emerging, and people like in the Central American Collective, you guys have done stuff with the Holocaust Museum, right? Other big institutions now, so the voice is emerging and balancing out the power relationships.
And it's
no?
important. Go ahead. Did you want to?
Yeah, no, it is very important. It is very important to continue to empower our communities. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right? Being able to ensure that all the voices are heard, and then from a geopolitical system that, yes, that there is more of a balance.
And ironically, more of a balance is better for the individuals of everybody. In other words, if you have you lose it when there's not pulls and pushes. You have to have different poles so that we can come to the best solutions, right?
No doubt. And I think we have lessons. Little Central America, 1984, recalling that moment, ultimately, out of that Cold War context, the solidarity movement with Central America, against American intervention in Central America, we changed U.S. policy.
Absolutely.
The United States did not get its objectives from the Reagan-Bush era
Right.
in Central America. We pushed back so hard here and in Central America that the course of history changed. So talk about balancing,
Yeah, and I think that's something that's starting to happen now.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing it right now here in Houston with everything that's going on, with all of these Central American voices just rising, where, before you everything that you heard about Central America was always the negative,
Right.
was everything. And now we're starting to really see that, okay, these are some of the leaders in these different spaces. These are some of the creatives in these different spaces. I speak with a lot of educators who continuously ask me for more support, through Central American Collective, which is the organization that I founded, where we're teaching about Central America through art and culture. And, they continue to ask for more support because they're seeing that in their classrooms, what used to be a very Mexican, heavy Latin American representation is now changing.
I am so glad to hear something like that, because again, they're different cultures actually. I mean, the Latin American, rather the Central American culture has a very strong Caribbean pull. So I mean, it is great to see that you have all of that. Let's see. Anyway, folks, don't forget you're listening to Politics on Right on KPFT 90.1 FM Houston. Thank you guys so kindly for being here. We have the boards. Rico is on the boards and the phones. Stuart's on the phones. Anyhow, to close us out, let's go ahead and why don't you... I tell you what, let's start with Maria. Maria, ladies, although, I always worry about this because... If you say ladies first, we get into, well, then are you a sexist or not? Or is this culture or not? I don't know. But we're going to go ahead and say Maria first.
Well, we really want to invite everybody to come out and support this show. It is so important for our community. We need to, we always say that we have to spend our money and spend our energy within our community in order to continue to grow. This is an opportunity for that, right? So we want to invite everybody out this weekend, Saturday at 7 and Sunday at 1:30 at the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston in the Museum District, and you can get tickets and information at diverseworks.org, diverseworks.org.
Thank you very much, Maria. Ruben.
Estoy muy emocionado de estar aquí en Houston. Thank you so much for the invitation to talk about Little Central America. It's poetry, it's music, it's remembering what we need to remember to be able to walk into a better future together.
Well, look, María, muchísimas gracias por estar aquí, y también Rubén, muchas gracias por estar aquí también. It was I enjoyed the conversation, and most importantly, I'm glad that you're centralizing not on one country, but on the entire Latin American, Central American experience. Thank you so kindly for being here. Muchísimas gracias por estar aquí.
A usted.
Okay, hermano.
Gracias.
All right, folks, we're continuing the program. We have some inflation to talk about, and we have some Medicare Advantage to talk about as well, folks. Eric Hayes is in the chat. Well, thank you for being here, Eric. And folks, we have all telephone. Muchas gracias. All lines are open, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Anyway, folks, give us a call. We would love to hear from you right now. Not necessarily on any subject of your choice. But anyhow, our essay of the day, like I said, the title of the show was We Made Sanctuary Cities Necessary, Good Inflation News, and Medicare Advantage Scandals. We've done the first one where you had both Ruben and Maria discussing that great topic of Central Americans in the United States, immigrant communities, sanctuaries, all the works that goes with it. Anyhow, President Biden had some happy news. President Joe Biden was happy with the better than expected inflation numbers. Inflation rose slightly, but year over year, it is 7.1%, still high, even with just a 0.1% month-to-month rise, which, looking forward, should be annualized not to 7.1%, but to 1.2%. So yesterday, the headline number should have been the inflation rate is at 1.2% annualized, effective last month. Anyhow, let's see what else we have to talk about. Yes, inflation is down. Inflation is down. Inflation is down. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise, and it should be down. And if we get rid of the corporate greed, it would be down further. Don't forget that we have to get what we're talking about down right. Anyhow, folks, it seems like we have El Señor Barry on the line. Barry, how are you doing today?
Are you sure you want to take this call?
You know I want to take it.
4 questions for you. I need
yes
to know answers rather than bleeding heart or rambling.
Yes.
At least nowhere.
Sure.
Is there this material difference between legal immigration, going through the steps, paying the money, standing in line, and illegal immigration?
Yes, there is a distinction.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Does America have the right to control its borders?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Which country has the toughest immigration laws?
Not America.
Mexico.
Okay. I don't have all that the complete answer in that, but I'll give you that.
Okay. So if Mexico has the right to send back people from Ecuador and other places, you're saying America does not?
I never said that.
Okay. Well, then do you support illegal immigration?
That's not a straight
Wait a minute. It was a yes or no question, remember?
Okay. If I support
You support illegal immigration?
Tacitly, no.
Well, hold on. It's yes or no.
I just told you no. I don't support. I don't support illegal immigration. No.
Then I tacitly do not support bank robbery.
You don't support what? Bank robber?
Catholic do not support bank
Okay.
robbery.
All right. And now that
But-
I've answered you with the yes or no, can I
But,
comment?
well, no, let me finish that one. But
Okay.
if the bank robbers get away with the money, they should
Yeah.
be able to keep it. So if the illegal aliens that you constantly don't support
Right?
get over to America, they should be able to stay.
Yes.
Let's go again. Yes or no?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Then you do support.
No,
illegal.
let me again.
No,
like I
you
said,
can't have
the
it both
difference.
ways.
Let me tell you the
We've been
difference
through
between a conservative like you and somebody who
here we go
believes in
again.
progress. No, let's go. Now I listen to you. Now you listen to me, my dear brother. So hold up a second.
Okay.
Let me give an
I'm not your
explanation.
dear brother, but go ahead.
Oh no, you want me to tell you something, Barry? Barry,
Okay, go ahead.
Barry. Before you are my brother. Okay, you are.
Hi.
And not only
Get
are
past
you my
that.
brother, you're a human being. And
Get
because
past
hold on, stop it. I'm talking. And so my humanity tells me that I will always treat you as a human being. Now, here is a mistake that you've just made in the in the questionnaire that you
Okay,
did.
please, go ahead.
It sounds great. And that is the type of stuff conservatives talk about. But here, there's a difference between capital and humans. Here's your question. You said if a bank robber, right, stole from a bank and had the cash, should they be able to hold on to that cash? No, that's capital. Now, if an undocumented worker
Illegal immigrant. No, not wait a minute, not undocumented. Illegal.
I don't care what you want to call it.
No,
I
they're
call
illegal.
I will call it undocumented.
They are illegal.
You can choose to
aliens
do that,
in
sir.
violation of American immigration law.
Sir,
go ahead.
the communication, the way we communicate is you talk, I listen, I talk,
We
you
stick
listen.
to the facts too, and the facts are they're illegal aliens.
When you'll get a chance to refute me after I'm done speaking, like I will refute you after you're done speaking. So let's get started.
Go ahead, sir.
All right. The way it goes is as follows, my dear brother.
Please.
I believe in humanity. All
Oh,
right.
no.
Number two, if somebody goes through the rigmarole to get over here, I'm going to try. I believe in legal immigration, but I'm going to try to keep my borders and my policies in such a manner to curtail people coming over here without being sanctioned legally.
Yeah.
Now, here's a kicker, though. If somebody makes it over here,
Okay.
I will be damned, and they are a productive citizen. I will be damned if I go out of the way to deport these people, and let me tell you why. Our history dictates after what we have done without having papers to come into America, I don't think it is anywhere fair, number one, and number two, I don't think it is even moral for us to say if somebody got over here, however they got over here,
Illegally.
you call it as you may. If they got
That's the
over
way it
here
is.
and they're living a
Illegally.
productive life, right?
Okay.
I'll be damned if I try to get them over when we had people who came over here, committed genocide to keep the
Okay.
land, and
The
then
opposite
somehow
phrase-
say we
Wait
have
a
to
minute.
somehow be tougher on those who came over here just to work.
The operative phrase is productive citizen. Do you support the drug cartels?
Absolutely
and human
not.
traffickers?
Absolutely
And
not.
human traffickers.
Absolutely not.
Well, do you support the fentanyl coming across the border killing Americans?
Absolutely not.
Okay, then you do not support illegal immigration because that's what a lot of them are doing.
But brother, again, like I said, we always, sir, must be nuanced. That's why we're human beings, and that's why we have a brain, because we can be nuanced in the way we solve problems. So
and we can also be for real too.
and I'm being very for real, and I mean it
You're
when I
not.
tell you, if I find if somebody is here undocumented and
Illegally.
they're living a productive life, I will be
Right.
damned if I send them back to wherever
And
they're
if
from.
they're part of the drug cartel, would you send them back?
Yes, sir. Of course, I'll lock.
Okay, if
I'll
they're part of human
absolutely.
trafficking, would you send them back?
Yes, I would.
If they're forcing 14-year-old girls into prostitution, would you send them back?
Yes, I would.
Well, then you send 95% of them back then.
That's not true at all, and that is where you err, sir. That is where you err, and you know better than that. So, but
you know you are.
but you know what?
You made some progress.
Let me
brother.
let me tell you, Barry,
You
Barry.
made some progress because
Brother-
you used to be a total bleeding heart liberal, but
No,
now you're just
I am.
bleeding heart liberal.
No, I'm actually left of a bleeding heart liberal, sir. But let me just tell you one thing, sir. I tell you what I'm happy that you did, because you gave me the opportunity to expand on the issue of undocumented folks and what I think our beliefs should be.
Illegal aliens.
It doesn't matter, Barry, that you
It
say it
does
that
matter.
way,
The
right?
facts matter. Wait a minute. You saying facts don't matter?
Facts absolutely matter, sir. But
Facts,
anyway,
do facts care about your feelings?
look,
No, do they?
Barry, yes. Barry,
Do
let
the
me
facts
just
care
tell
about
you.
your feelings?
Barry, remember, one at a time.
That's
But
a
anyway,
question.
anything else you want to
Yes or
add?
no?
Do you want to add anything else before I go to the other caller, Brother Barry?
Yes, we need Mr. Biden put up this wall. Thank you.
All right, Barry. Look, it's a great talking to you, my brother. And you keep calling and you keep keeping us. Okay, man? You be cool. All right, Dave, come on in. Dave, you're on. Did we lose Dave? Dave, give us a call back. I think we probably lost you. So give us a call back and we'll be right with you. But anyway, I was speaking before Barry called about the good inflation news. Because people said, well, still inflation is high at 7.1%. And when they said at 7.1%, that wasn't my question. My question was, what was the delta in inflation between month of September, or rather month of October and month of November? And that was an inflation rate of 0.1%. Annualized, it is 1.2%. In my humble opinion, the mistake the Feds always make why they throw us into recessions with these increases in interest rates is that they look at the past annualization instead of the future annualization. The thugs in ties, executives and corporations, have already taken their chunk of meat out of Americans when they had these last price increases that were based mostly, more than 50% of these price increases were solely based on corporate profit. They got their chunk. They are scared to go much higher right now because of what can come, called demand destruction, among other things. And that's why they haven't been. Hey, Dave, we lost you. You can give us a call back at 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Hit extension 2 to get online. Hit extension 2 to get online. So let me repeat because I want folks to understand this. The last tick of inflation was 0.1%. Annualized, 0.1% is roughly a 1.2% inflation. It's a bit higher than that because, it's compounded, right? But so annualized would be 1.2%. Yesterday, the headline number was 7.1% because they backstroked it into what things cost 12 months ago from today. Yes, that is 7.1% from the past, but it's at an inflation rate increasing at 1.2%, which meets the federal standard of under 2% inflation. I mean, you cannot get from last year for there to have been a drop to, let's say, 3% or something like that. We would have had to go into a negative inflation rate between months for that not to have been annualized. It is basic math that it irks me that when I listen to the news, they don't tell you. When you saw that 7.1% inflation rate, you're like, oh my God, things are still going up. No, a 0.1% increase in the aggregate is a 1.2% increase annualized going forward. And I wish they would tell you these things when they're preaching about inflation, etc., etc. Anyhow, folks, again, give us a call, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Hit extension 2 if you'd like to speak. The second, so with inflation, I'm done with that one now. The third item was Medicare Advantage again. And what we had is a report out of Common Dreams. The title says, as scandals mount, so do calls to abolish private Medicare Advantage plans. And I want to read the top 4 paragraphs of that article because I think it's prescient. It goes as follows. As yet another scandal involving Medicare Advantage made headlines this week, progressive U.S. lawmakers and advocates renewed calls to abolish the private health insurance program, with a recent Senate report said is running amok with fraudsters and scam artists. Let me interpret that paragraph. Every time you watch TV, you hear Get Medicare Advantage. Get Medicare Advantage. It's great for you. We give you ears, nose, throat, everything we give you. We even give you a lunch and a membership to a gym. And everybody says, wow, it's so much better than Medicare, until you read the fine prints. Folks, read the fine prints and stick with Medicare, not Medicare Advantage, because by the time you're in there, you have already harmed yourself with the possibility later on of getting original Medicare when that plan is no longer what you want, or whether you need to get Medigap because you want to go back to Medicare. You won't be able then to afford it. I am telling you, the fraud within Medicare Advantage, the lies that they tell you, is it goes through the roof. But continue with the article. In a New Nation article written with health insurance reform advocate Wendell Potter, Representative Ro Khanna and Mark Pocan contend that one of the most confusing things facing elders while choosing their Medicare plans is a scheme by private insurance companies to prey on seniors and profit off of the Medicare brand, all in the name of padding their corporate profits and shareholder returns. Again, think about that. It's not Medicare. Medicare Advantage is not Medicare. It's paid for with Medicare dollars at an inflated price, but it is not Medicare. It does not have the safeguards of Medicare, no matter what they tell you. The scheme is called Medicare Advantage. I'm reading the article again. The scheme is called Medicare Advantage, but in reality, so-called Medicare Advantage is neither Medicare nor an advantage, wrote the lawmakers, who earlier this year introduced legislation that, if passed, would ban private insurance plans from using the Medicare name. It's actually just private insurance that uses the trusted Medicare name to trick seniors and people with disabilities into enrolling, then profits by denying coverage for necessary medical care. Khanna and Pocan added, it's a long past time for Congress to end this scam and ensure that consumers get accurate information about their health care options. And if you learned the options, I've written many articles about it, and so has Tom Hartman had written a book about it, something that we should all read. But please go to egbertowillies.com and do a search on Medicare Advantage for the different articles we've written on it. It's important that people who are about to get on do not get conned into saying, oh, it sounds so much better than Medicare. You know, nothing in this world is given for free, especially when it comes from corporations. In fact, corporations only give you something they can profit from. They only give you something they can profit from. In other words, they give you nothing. I don't have anything against profits. I have nothing against corporations. But when it comes to your health care, when it comes to your well-being, when it comes to things that you must have to survive, I do not believe in leaving that in the hands of corporations whose basic responsibility is profit. And again, that goes for anything that I do. I've had corporations before. I have a LLC right now. And I don't want to control anybody's life. And that is what Medicare Advantage is doing. They sucker you into going to Medicare Advantage. And by the way, because a friend of mine told me how good their plan was, and he was right. If you don't have any illnesses, if you are basically healthy, if you don't have any major problems, Medicare Advantage is great. It's cheaper than it's generally cheaper than Medicare. But if you happen to get, and which people at older ages get, some critical disease, and we all will get them in our old age, you are likely to be ping-ponged among the least form of getting health care. Because again, you are not the product, or rather you are simply the widget to make somebody a buck, to make somebody a dollar. And at the earliest we understand that, all the pretty things that they try to con us about, the free lunch, the free dinner, the free meal, the free whatever, at that point, that's how they intend to hook you. And if you allow that to happen, in the long run, you will pay the price. And all I'm asking, all of our listeners right here, if you already have Medicare Advantage and you're still healthy, I can't give you advice. I'm not an insurance salesperson to give advice, but I can tell you what I would do. What I would do if I had happened to sign up for Medicare Advantage is get to hell off as soon as I could. Now, there's one last caveat. There are some people who just can't afford it because of the great deal that Medicare Advantage is given. And of course, it's being paid for by Medicare. At that point, you should be working with all of us who have been working for decades to ensure that we have, instead of having to have Medicare and Medicare Advantage and all of these things, to have health care for all. In other words, our entire medical system needs a complete moral review. Not a review. We already know what the solutions are. We need to change our entire healthcare system to one that believes in humanity, to one that believes in life, to one that believes in not taking your home, not making you destitute because you've gotten an illness. That is where we are headed. That is where we should be heading for. So there are some people who just won't be able to go back, and I understand it. And you should be out there however you can, working with us, working with those activists out there that are trying to make a system that supports us all, trying to make a system that works for us all, that gives us all health care. We don't have any more time for calls right now, but let me just tell you that one of the things that we are working on here at KPFT is to make sure that we bring you programs that are not a zero-sum gain. I'm talking about our talk show specifically now. We have great music shows like you've had with Rourke, who just left here. I love listening to Rourke. But what we try to do is every time you listen to one of these shows, every time you've listened to Politics Done Right, I want to make sure that you live, first of all, with a positive feeling that you can actually go out there and do something that is necessary to make all our lives better. Your life better, my life better, my daughter's life better, my wife's life better, Stuart's life better, Rico's life better, everybody's lives better. That's our goal here. So again, the three topics we covered today was immigration, the interest rates, as well as Medicare Advantage. And I hope out of all three of those subjects, you realize that this is a vast amount of material that we will be covering over and over again in different flavors to ensure that we have maximal penetration of truth. Again, maximal penetration of truth. Because right now with the type of media that we have out there, like I explained, even the way inflation was explained as, it's at 7.1%. They don't say that's year over year and that it's at 1.2% month over month, right? You don't hear that. Annualized at 1.2%. You don't hear that. So what we have a system, what our system do to us, including our media, the media that we have out there, is constantly, they keep us ill-informed or misinformed, many times disinformed. And the difference between disinformation and misinformation is a bit less. Disinformation means we purposely lie to you, have you do something completely off keel. Misinformation is just a little less intrusive, if you will. So we're coming close to the end of the program. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to keep us on your mind. Don't forget to go to kpft.org, support this program and many others. 713-526-5738. Hit the number 1 if you want to contribute. And again, kpft.org, kpft.org to support us or to listen to us online if you are somewhere else. So it is important for us to go. I got 10 more seconds. So my name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!